A year since the Pretrial Fairness Act went into effect, new research shows violent and property crimes actually went down during that time, despite opponents saying the elimination of cash bail would cause more crime. According to Capital News Illinois, of almost 9,000 detention-eligible crimes, 36% of defendants were in custody, and 43% of the cases prosecutors did not ask for custody.
Jail populations did go down a bit, but nowhere near as much as some people were predicting. And the research suggests that the rate at which people are being released from jail pretrial likely hasn't changed dramatically.